Hey guys, and welcome to this video that I've been wanting to do for about 2 weeks now. I don't know why I didn't just sit down the first time I was thinking about it, but I just wanted to add, for what little it's worth, my 2 cents on two game console stories that have been floating around in the gaming world for a couple of weeks now. And that is the Nintendo NX being announced as going to release in March of 2017. Also, I want to mention a little bit about a story that percolated a while back about the Wii U ending production by the end of the year. I guess that was not confirmed, but I want to talk about it. And then the other story is the PlayStation 4.5 or the PlayStation 4K or the PlayStation Neo. But I will save that for the second part. The first part I want to dedicate to the NX and Wii U and all that kind of stuff. Now, if you've paid any attention to these videos, if you know me from like the N64 Forever forum or whatever, you know that I'm not Nintendo fanboy by any means. The last true full console love affair that I could say that I've had with Nintendo really goes back to the Super Nintendo. I would have said the game, or it's not the GameCube, the N64, but a year or two ago I realized that most of my love for the N64 centered around Ocarina of Time and how much that game had an impact on me in the 90s that kind of elevated for some reason the entire N64 experience. Now there's a lot of other awesome games on the N64. It was the little Nintendo console the last cartridge-based one that they did. I have a lot of fond memories in general with it, but it really, the tent pole for that was The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. The Super Nintendo, I could list out a lot more games for it that were really memorable experiences for me. With the GameCube, I didn't get in on the GameCube thing. I never owned a GameCube really. I actually had a GameCube on layaway at one point, and I bought a GameCube from a friend, but I never hooked it up, and within a month or two I had sold it. So that kind of skipped me. I have a Wii, but the Wii is kind of my surrogate GameCube. I don't play a lot of the specific Wii games. I haven't really played a whole lot of the GameCube games I have for it. I've probably spent more time playing homebrew games of older Nintendo games. So the last couple of consoles haven't really meant that much of anything to me. And then you have the Wii U. The Wii U, I felt like, even though it was lagging maybe a generation behind with, the competitors in the PS4 and the Xbox One, it was their first HD console. I felt like it was going to push them maybe a little bit forward. Unfortunately, I guess marketing decisions like calling it the Wii U, having the gamepad, it threw a lot of people for a loop. And after the Wii, a lot of hardcore gamers, but just gamers in general, in my opinion, felt a little stung by the motion control gimmicks and not just having a console with a regular controller you'd sit down and play like anything else. So the Nintendo consoles are kind of being left behind for the most part, except for by people who are really hardcore Nintendo fans, and then of course people who are just collectors. But me, I wanted to get a Wii U. I already own Xenoblade Chronicles X. I want to buy the new Legend of Zelda game. And I was expecting to get a Wii U at some point when it had gotten a little cheaper and a few of those games had come out. And I could just be like, okay, now I'm going to have my chance to have a Wii U in a small library. But then the NX rumors started to pop up. And the NX was coming. And the NX patent information was coming out. And finally, first thing that happened was a little bit earlier this year, reports were coming out of Japan that Nintendo was going to cease all production of Wii U consoles by the end of 2016. Now, they denied it, and I don't think it's ever been confirmed as fact, but it seems like it would make sense, as much NX talk as there's been. If they feel like the Wii U is a sinking ship, they're going to bail on it. So I could see that happening by the end of the year. But whether or not that happens doesn't really matter. The only thing that mattered to me was, would I be able to play my Xenoblade Chronicles X? Would I be able to play the new Legend of Zelda game and the other handful of Wii U games that I want to check out? Am I going to be able to play them on this NX console? Will it be backwards compatible? Or am I going to have to go to just getting a Wii U sometime after it's no longer the current console for Nintendo? If I can find one that's new for a decent price, I would do that. But another thing that's been pushed back and information has been sparse has been the Legend of Zelda game for the Wii U. I think it was originally supposed to come out in 2015. It's been shown off as far back as like 2014, I believe. But it just kept slipping further and further back. Now, two things come to mind for me on that. One is Twilight Princess, which was the GameCube Zelda game, but it got pushed back so far that it also became a launch Wii game. And anytime a game like that gets moved around, you start to wonder if it's just going to move to the new console and not go to the old one. And my example for that would be The Last Guardian, the long-awaited PS3 game, one of the 3 games that caused me to want to buy a PS4, because Sony and the group behind it, Team Eco, decided that even after all those years of development for the PS3, they would say, no thank you, PS3's a couple of years. I mean, PS4 has been out for a couple of years, so the PS3 is winding down. Even though it has a huge install base, they just assume that everybody's going to have a PS4 and are not going to care about the PS3 anymore. So let's move it over to this console completely. And I was afraid that that's what would happen with The Legend of Zelda. Now, the news that I have heard, the last news that I had read online, was that it was coming to both. So it was going to be another Twilight Princess. It would be for the old one and the brand new console. I hope that that is the way that it goes, though. Because if they were to decide to discard the Wii U version and just go with it to the NX, and if the NX isn't backwards compatible with Wii U games, then I have to make the decision to buy both of those consoles, or I'm going to miss out on games. I don't really want to buy another console, and I especially don't want to buy 2 more, but for games like Legend of Zelda and Xenoblade Chronicles X, I'm going to do it. So, I'm hoping that there will be some more confirmation as to the fact that the Zelda's coming to both consoles, or that they just say, hey, the NX is backwards compatible. I'd be willing to jump to that if it would still play Xenoblade Chronicles X and, Super Mario Maker and Hyrule Warriors, Bayonetta 2, all these Wii U games that I've been wanting to get my hands on. If they'll play on the NX, I just jump to an NX. But it's a sticky thing for me right now. Now that's just kind of the personal stuff for me. And I tend to just kind of talk about how I feel about stuff and my opinions. But in all honesty, if I could just take a step back for a moment and say what I wish for Nintendo, well, what I wish for Nintendo is the best. I hope that this new console can kind of elevate them once again. Instead of being the guy that's back there, I don't care how successful they are or they aren't. I don't care how awesome their IPs are. I want to see them be a competitive horse in the race, so to speak. A lot of people always say, well, everybody's decision nowadays is I get PS4, I get Xbox One, and then maybe I get a Wii U as well for Nintendo exclusives. But imagine if Nintendo's console was right up there with the rest of them, and it could run Battlefields and Call of Duties and Grand Theft Autos and Final Fantasies and all these other big things. Assassin's Creed. Ubisoft was one of the last companies that was still kind of supporting them and throwing games their direction. But everybody has pretty much pulled out of it as major third-party makers, other than, I guess, the fighting game ones. I don't know, actually, to be honest with you, I don't even know who is still putting out high-profile third-party games for Nintendo. And that's a shame. So if the NX it's reportedly about as strong, if not stronger, than our current PS4, Xbox Ones, and if they open it up and let third-party developers still make games for it, and they get rid of all of the gimmicky shit, maybe we could see them, come back to some previous level that they used to have. I would just like to see that for them. I'm not wishing for them to go away. There have been times when I've thought, well, maybe they should just shut down console making and just make games for the new consoles or whatever. But I don't really want to see that. I don't really want to just see the two consoles and that's it. Not that that hasn't been a thing in the past when it was Nintendo and Sega, but when Sony came along, I thought it really made things interesting. But right after Sony came along, Sega kind of fizzled out, and Microsoft stepped in and became the third. There was a three-horse race, so to speak, and I just love to see Nintendo be up there with the other guys. So, those are my thoughts on that. NX, we'll see what happens. We'll see what information comes out the rest of this year, and especially for Legend of Zelda. I just want some confirmation on which console it's going to go to, and or whether the NX is going to be backwards compatible. My guess is that it probably won't be, but it would be awesome if it was. It'd make my decision pretty easy. So the second part of this I want to talk about, only because I recently, purchased a PlayStation 4 and I'm now a part of this current generation. And then they started talking about this Sony PlayStation 4.5/4K console. Basically a PS4 that was going to be souped up under the hood to handle 4K. Now, I was a little upset when I first heard that, because I just got a PS4 and I waited for months, like 7 months. I scoured the internet and deals and stuff for a terabyte model, and only one single 1 terabyte PS4 has been released in the US, and that was the Call of Duty Black Ops 3 Special Edition console that was decorated with the logos and stuff. And I didn't care about having that. It was kind of cool looking, but it was for a game I didn't really care about, that I still ended up having to get on my PS4 because it was bundled with it. I just wanted a terabyte hard drive. And when it came down the line that, I had my tax return money and I was going to be able to buy one, and there wasn't an option for that, I was like, okay, well then I just got to buy what's available, because I'm ready. I'm ready to play PS4 games. And then a couple months later, I hear about this new console, and it made me upset at first. I'm not as upset about it now. In fact, I'm not really upset about it at all, because so far, anyway, the news that's come out about it just means that it's going to stream 4K content. It's going to play stuff in 4K, but it's not going to be, say, like the new Nintendo 3DS XL, where there will be games that can only be played on that. They have stated, or I have heard, or somebody has quoted, that this is not going to have 4K games that won't play on my version of the PS4, so I miss out on something. It just means that I won't be able to stream stuff in 4K, like 4K movies, 4K discs, 4K Netflix, whatever. This TV that I have back here, it's not a 4K television. In fact, it's just a regular 1080p LCD. In a few years, maybe I'll get a 4K television, and it might be more important to me then. But right now, it's not that important to me. Right now, I'm just glad I have a PlayStation 4, and I'm not going to miss out on any games other than PlayStation 5 games whenever that thing comes to be. So, that's really all I have to say about that. If news changes, if something should change on that would really upset me or bother me, I might make another video on it. But right now, as it stands, it just seems like whatever this PlayStation 4K 4.5 Neo console is, it's just going to be, I guess, sort of the same way that the last few generations have seen slim consoles and consoles with bigger hard drives, and maybe they take out a backwards compatibility component so they can save some money. Maybe they do this or do that. Well, this is one that's kind of tweaked to be able to handle 4K streaming of movies and other content, and maybe 4K, maybe PlayStation 4 games that were actually mastered in 4K will look a little better on those consoles and on a 4K television. But as long as it's not exclusionary and it doesn't cause games to come out for it that won't play on my PS4, I don't give a damn. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the NX and the new PlayStation 4K console. I just thought I would talk about them for a few minutes, so there you go. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.